Welcome everyone. This is Drip Made Live. My name is Jeremy Jackson. I am here to bring you some live jewelry. We're going to work on some platinum pieces tonight. We're going to do some unsoldering of some 14 karat bands. I'm going to set a Euro cut diamond and I'm going to show you, if we have enough time, how to repair a burr runaround if you don't have a laser. Not very difficult. It's something easy we can tackle tonight. All right, so let's make sure we are coming in everywhere. And I was vibing on that song. Oh, all right. Yes, yes, yes. Perfect. So if you have any questions whatsoever about the work that I'm doing tonight, about the processes that I'm using, about the tools that I'm using, heck, any question you have, I'll answer it. So throw those in the chat. Mike Turner says, platinum is so much fun. Can't wait. Yeah, we did some platinum repairs last stream. This time we are going to use this the existing prongs in this platinum vintage ring and set that Euro diamond. And we've got a couple of rounds to replace on the side too. So we did some, if you check on episode, I want to say episode 12, or sorry, episode 11, we did some platinum refinishing. So check those out. Pretty good run through of how to refinish platinum and all the steps that you need to take to get where you need to go with it. So hope you guys like the new digs. I did some work on the overlay. I like this one a lot better. It works pretty well. So do me a favor, if you're watching for the first time, hit subscribe, hit follow. If you're on Rumble, hit follow. If you're on X, hit follow. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. And on Facebook, you're probably already a friend of mine. So thank you for joining us. But you can also follow Drip Made Live on Facebook and get notifications when we go live. I'm going to do my best not to spam everyone, but I am going to try to do this at 8 to 11 p.m. every night this week. So stay tuned. We're going to get a lot done. All right. So, and if you're an existing subscriber or follower, hit the like button. You'd be helping me out a lot, and show me that I'm doing something useful for you by clicking that little button down there. Anyway, any questions you have, throw those in live chat, and we'll get to them. So, I'm going to. Whoa, I got set up for soldering now. All right, let's take a quick look at our vintage piece. I'm going to zoom this guy in. Pardon my camera work on the fly here. It is just me, so my producer is not in the studio. He is probably on a bottle right now. Okay, so this is a vintage round and baguette ring. It had a stone in it, and it was set with kind of a fishtail style prong, a single squared prong made to look like three separate prongs. So we're going to do something similar with the stone. We're going to use the existing prongs, like I said, and try to recut that or replicate that vintage style. We've also got mill grain around some of these baguettes we're going to touch up, and on this side, and we'll take a closer look in the microscope here in a second. We have some rounds that are missing, so I'm going to repair them. Okay. And later on, I've got a platinum sizing, so we're going to do some platinum soldering again. And if we have the time, I'm going to do a repair on a burr runaround on tiny stud earring. So stick around for that one. All right. I'm going to take my wedding ring off. Otherwise, I'd be constantly refinishing the bottom here. All right. Let's take a look in the microscope. Probably need some light there. All right. There we go. Oh, our camera moved around a little bit here. I'm going to correct this. I apologize for doing this while we're live. There we go. I want you to be able to see exactly what I see in real time here. That way I can talk about it. Hopefully this isn't too obnoxious here. All right. So let's take a look at this ring. We did the repair on the last stream. There was a big, it was a soft spot where it had thinned out really fine. So we soldered in a chunk of platinum and we refinished it up to that point. We'll redo the mill grain that should be on the ends of these also. Okay. So taking a look at the center prongs here, you can see it's kind of a square style. I'm trying to recall what exactly this style of setting would be called, but essentially you can kind of see where it is worn over the years. I'll point with a file here. Whatever stone was originally in this ring, they wanted it to appear to have 3 prongs in the corners. So what they did was they cast these square pieces, set the stone using the metal on these, and then created a bead of metal over the top of the stone in 3 places, splitting it right there and right there to look like 3 different prongs. So we're going to replicate that, do something a little similar now. Our stone is slightly smaller than whatever was in here. So what we're going to do is set this a little bit lower. We're going to go about right there, just eyeballing it, a little bit lower, and then we're going to use the existing metal on these we're going to fold that over very slightly, and then we're going to use the existing metal in here to replicate this 3-prong design. So these guys, looks like this might have taken some damage. We talked a little bit about it on the last stream, but we're going to pull these old fishtail style settings out, or open them up, and put some new stones in there. Because they're the fishtail style, they do have the split between them, a hallmark, but also an annoyance when it comes to this style of setting. So we're going to try to replicate that. I've got some stones that should fit. We're going to test them. And then we will probably take a beading tool and go back through, just round off all of these little prongs. Anything that looks like it might have taken some damage or worn over the years. So let's get started. Okay. We will take our stone out and get a good look at it. This is a 1.15 carat Euro cut. Slightly different proportions than a round brilliant that would be ideal cut. It almost fits in there pretty well, but because it was removed with a cutoff wheel, we're going to set it a little lower so we have enough prong to work with. Okay. Pop that guy out there. Quick check. Make sure we're still on everywhere. Looks like we are. Awesome. A little war wound there from the last stream. That was episode 12. The video for it should be up now, so check it out. And earlier in the week I finished a couple of cut down versions of the stream videos so that you don't have to watch the whole stream to find certain places where I worked on different pieces. You can see them all at once. Okay, like I said, I'm just going to cut a preliminary seat a little bit lower in here. A little bit farther in. Because we know this stone sits kind of low. Right before coming out, I saw the news about the Colorado State Supreme Court. It was an appeal from the district court regarding Trump being on the ballot, and they want, okay, they know an appeal is coming, so they stayed their ruling until that appeal is resolved, which is probably the right move, because you're not going to get away with this kind of election tampering, which that's the only way I could describe it. You're not letting people choose who they want to elect. That is election interference. So they just had their ruling, and they said, well, he's an insurrectionist. He fomented the insurrection on January 6th. Well, okay. Has he been convicted of such? No, he is not. So he might be an alleged insurrectionist. He might even be a suspected insurrectionist, but he's not an insurrectionist. And anyone that lost their voting rights due to the 14th Amendment did so after being convicted of a crime. So it's a little silly where we're at right now. And if you have any perspectives on that, I'd be happy to talk about that too. Kind of a wild, novel legal argument is the way I've best heard it described. Now the weird thing is they're using federal law, federal amendment, in a state court, and precedent from convictions at the federal level to apply this in Colorado, merely to remove him from the ballot. I think it's kind of silly in the first place, but that's where we're at right now. Okay. We're just going to test fit our stone in here, and I think I've got the seat at the height that I want it. Now it's just a matter of getting to the depth. And what I may do is, and we're not going to use this metal up here at the top, I may cut away those at least thinner spots that we won't be able to use, just to make it easier to work with here. Let's trim some of that away. We're going to retain as much of this metal as possible, but these little thin flaps aren't going to do us any good, because we're not going to solder them to anything, and our stone's going to sit way lower than that. So we're just going to trim those up. I can take them back to kind of where they did the cutoff. That way they're out of the way and won't prevent us from fitting the stone. All right. Mike Turner, how you doing, man? Hope your evening's going well. Are you still visiting family? Or are you on the move again? So, kind of a funny story here. I was getting my channel set up and ready to go. I had my grand idea of being a YouTube streamer, working on jewelry. And I find out my sister's doing something similar. She is streaming, but she's doing Pokemon giveaway streams where she has certain cards and offers them to people if they enter her contests. And she's doing really well with it. She had a lot of people watching her the other day. I'm really proud of her. So good job, Jennifer. I hope I can replicate your success. But I'm only going to be able to do that if I keep my face off screen as much as possible. So she has the personality. I'm hoping I've got some other I don't know what, so to speak. Mike Turner, I'm good. No, he's back in East Texas. Okay, all right. Nothing too crazy happening these days. Hey, man, not crazy is good. I like not crazy. Oh, I guess I should plug my sister's stuff. She runs on a platform named Drip. I have never heard of Drip the platform. I guess it's collectible sharing and things like that. That's pretty cool. Different terminology than my slang for Drip Made Live. But apparently she does they're streaming there under a name called Cards All Day. And she's doing a great job with it. So if you are interested in Pokemon and Pokemon collectibles, hey, there you go. Drip is the app, and then Cards All Day is the person. And she'd be happy to see you. All right. Ah, I understand, Mike. Okay, we're going to cut away some of these. I'm going to use a graver here, and we're going to cut away some of these flanges of metal. And we're going to kind of clean up the sides of these prongs so we can start working with them. I don't want them this wide, if I can avoid it. If I set them that, as low as I want to go with them, we don't want them that high, or that wide across the stone. It'll be difficult to make a pretty little illusion prong, I guess you might call it. I'm just taking away all this little excess that pops up. And then I think what I'm going to do is sand some of those back a little bit. Let's see if I can get the sanding disc in there. I can, but the question is, should I? Yeah, let's do it. We'll cut those back just a hair, and that'll make it a little easier to set. Okay. Probably be a hair more attractive too. I'm not too terribly concerned about that middle grain there, since we're going to touch it up a little bit. All I'm doing is starting to bring these back a little bit closer. Okay, I'm going to do the rest of that kind of work with the file. I'll be able to keep it a little cleaner. Right, now the question is, where is my file? There it is. So, if there are any other jewelers out there watching tonight, I know what you're going through right now. You're getting close to the end. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel here, and you can count on it being a good year. I'm sure. My wife is also a bench jeweler, and she's working some long hours right now. Keep up with Christmas gifts, because nobody likes to miss a deadline. All right. So this was almost certainly wax carved. Got a little bit of a difference in shape as you look around here. For example, the settings for the baguettes aren't centered exactly, and this was all hand done. What we're going to do here is smooth that down the hair. Let's see. I want to say, no, I doubt they had no grain across. They just left that as a flat bar, and when they trimmed that out, they didn't take away the flange of metal on top. So we're going to clean that up so it'll look better from the side too. I'm going to use a slightly more aggressive file. Very slightly. If I can find it here. Slightly more aggressive. We're going to use a triangle file so we don't get too close to the sides of the prongs that we just cleaned up. We're going to flatten that off. And we're probably well past the stage where they could make corrections by the time it hit a person's bench that set the center stone, and that's why you see that they probably left that. Okay. So I wasn't aware this was a platinum ring when I first started working on it. So you can watch me go through that realization on the last stream. Alright. Just going to trim that up, make it look a little better. We'll be able to polish down in there where they didn't before. Okay. Testing our fit. And that stone will fit down in there now. So what I'm going to do is start cutting for the girdle. And then we can sneak the stone into place. We will have to bend one or two, or at least two of those prongs back. But we want to make sure we're cut for that on the other side. Using a 70-degree burr, my preference is always to undercut. I saw that there was quite the discussion about using a ball burr versus a 70-degree or a heart burr in the Stone Setters forum, or the Stone Setters Facebook group. So if you're joining from there, tell me your preference. You can drop that in live chat, or you can put it in the comments and I'll get back to those questions on a later stream. Why would you use, or why would you not use, a ball burr in this kind of setting application? My preference, like I said, is a heart burr. I like to cut my seat so that it hugs the girdle of the stone, only touches on the pavilion and the crown just over the edge of the girdle. I like to have nice square edges on the top and bottom of that seat so that when I pull that down, it flushes up, it matches up really well. My logic there is I wouldn't use a ball burr because it creates a rounded surface, and if that rounded surface is overpressured onto, for example, the facet junctions between the girdle and the pavilion, or the facet junctions between the girdle and the crown, you can cause a break. So I would prefer to have the girdle allowed for a little bit more. Now I guess you could, with like a 0.3 ball burr, carve those out, go a little bit overboard, and make enough room for that stone's girdle. That also seems kind of like an awful lot of cutting. Maybe there's a blend between the two of those. And if you are preferential to that, then tell me in the chat. Tell me why. Okay. I've pre-cut this seat pretty well. We're at the point where I'm going to have to sneak those prongs back so that we can get the stone in. Oh, my choices here. And prongs to bend back. This guy right here, he looks like he's a hair thinner, and I've cut that seat kind of deep. I don't want to mar up the back of these too bad, but I know I'm going to have to come back and readdress it, so I'm just going to pull that lightly back. Not worried about the metal on the front of this prong, because we're going to make that look fine after we get the stone in place. All right. Kind of a break in the weather last night, at least here at the farm, or today. Last night it was cold, cold, cold. But today it got up into the mid-40s. It was comfortable enough to get out and do some work. I ended up hauling gravel most of the afternoon. So, gotta do what you gotta do. All right. I'm gonna pull the edge of this prong back just a hair, because I think we can get this stone in without much more fuss. There we go. Oops. Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop fumbling around out here and just use my tweezers. There we go. Here's a question to you if you're in the chat. On Melee, like these little guys here, what do you use to pick them up and hold them when you go to set something? Are you like me, where you use little tweezers like this, and you've gotten used to holding stones? Or do you prefer the wax bead method, or a little bit of sticky wax on the back end of a little rod? Do you prefer the beading tool method? I've seen that a lot, where you put something sort of sticky on the end of a beading tool and you set it on top of the stone and set the stone in place. Let me know. Pull this prong back just a hair still. Do a lot of eyeballing at this stage, just get an idea of how that stone's going to fit. Looking at how our pavilion angles line up, looking at the thickness of the girdle, and just taking a stab at getting it close. And then we'll come back through here like I'm about to do and retouch some of our seats to allow for the particular oddities and differences in the stone. Mike Turner says, I got really comfortable with either tweezers or a beading tool. Usually opted for the tweezers though. Yeah, my preference is always little bitty tweezers like these guys. I'm going to show you on camera here. Little bitty guys for melee setting. Once you get the hang of how to hold on to a stone, even with these, you can pick up anything. You can turn it over. You can angle it, put it into whatever place. That's my preference also. I am not a big fan of the beading tools or the wax bead. Now I do use beeswax. Say if I've got a big colored stone, and I'll just roll a ball of beeswax and then make it into a rod and use the top of that if I need to turn the stone. But my preference is almost always tweezers. And that does take quite a bit of getting used to. Using tweezers to hold a stone with slick sides like Diamond Melee. It's all about maintaining the right pressure and being able to turn your fingers to keep maintaining the right pressure. And of course I've had plenty of tinks. You're holding the stone and all you hear is tink, and it magically flies away as your tweezers come clacking together. Those are fun. Now, my preference for, say, this stone would probably be, I really like the fine diamond tweezers that used for diamond grading. The ones with the big F on them. Because they are textured well enough to grab either the culet and the crown or across the girdle like this. You can manipulate things really well with them. The downside of using that and doing what I'm doing right here is that you've got you eventually wear down the ends of these, and you end up with the bent ends or sharp ends or little burrs on the end of it. Especially if you do a lot of diamond work. Found the spot that I didn't like in the seat, so we're going to address that now. I could opt, or could have opted, to make this into a V-prong, but I want to try to replicate the style that was originally on it. I think it's a neat look on the right ring. Okay. Real quick, gotta break away for a second here. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Make sure my Rumble chat's up. There we go. Alright. So I did see that Restream, which is the program that I use to hit multiple platforms at once, now has live chatting on X. That's exciting. I could always see if there were any comments, but I wouldn't be able, or there was no live chat that I could get. Well, there was a live chat on there, but it wasn't able to come through my streaming platform here, or my streaming distributor. Okay. Got a little bit of a hiccup on this seat here, so we're going to cut that down right now so that stone can sit down and level. One thing I did notice was the stone was kind of sitting on the edge of this area here where there's that double bar of mill grain. I may opt to take that out. Because we're going a hair lower. There we go. Alright. And we just gotta get this guy in. We're gonna have to come down on this prong just a hair. Take that a little bit lower. Still maintaining that square shape for the girdle. also want to make sure we can pull enough metal over the top of this after we get the stone in to create good little bead prongs. Nope, I tried to come at that the wrong way, didn't I? Shoot. There we go. Oh yes. Yep, see, we're sitting on the edge here. I think we're going to have to take that line of middle grain out, but that's a-okay. We'll clean up the next line and make it look nice. We're not that low on that side, but you'll notice that it is a waxed carved model. I think we may take it down just a hair lower to sit even on the profile of the ring. It is an old wax carved model, so it's almost certainly got some discrepancies between each side of the piece. Let's see how this looks side to side. So we're going to have to take a good look at this stone and see which way it's going to face the best in this ring. We might be able to see one side of that crown is taller than the other. Kind of a dip in the girdle right there. Hey, look, there's a GIA stone. Huh. It's kind of odd on a Euro cut like this. No? Neat. All right. So let's try this a couple different directions and see if we can get it to set nicely. Because of that weirdness in the girdle. We'll get it in place and we'll turn it a little bit. Let's see if it looks best one way or the other. That is definitely not going to be the direction we go with. Spin her around. Whoop. Come on there. Drop in place. There it went. Okay. Not bad there. Looks pretty good here. Okay. Now here is the big question. Did Jeremy bring a Sharpie? He did! Alright. I'm going to mark it on the side that faces those stones, or the missing stones. That's just going to be a guide mark, so we know which way to turn this stone. I like how it sits in that seat. I like how it's positioned with the rest of the ring, so I think we'll just go with that. Okay, now we're going to look at each of these seats real quick and make sure we've cut them enough that as we bring the prong over, I have plenty of metal over the edge of the stone. That guy I need to address real quick. So now that our stone's marked, we can make sure we get it back in the right place. There we go. Pull her out. Make the proper adjustments. A little joke my mentor in stone setting used to tell. It's a little crude, but he always said that this stage of setting, you're basically fornicating the ring. Because you're in with the stone, you're out with the stone, you're in and out and in and out, and then everybody's happy after it finally goes in. Alright, so because of the shape of these, or the width of these pavilion seats, I'm going to gently take the leading edge off of them, and that'll prevent that from holding our stone in a funny place. The only contact I want on this stone happens right here, about a third to a halfway down the seat. Any more than that, you're kind of taking a risk that you're going to put pressure in a spot on the pavilion that that could cause a break. So I just like to open the seat up a little bit more, especially on a stone cut like this, where your proportions aren't exactly the same as an ideal cut. All right, we're going to spin this guy around. There we go. Oh yes, that one sits down nicely now. Love it. Okay, good with that seat. Feel good about that one. That one. That one we're going to pull over quite a bit, so that one should match pretty well. Only one I'm a little iffy on. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, I am going to do an orientation cut in this. And this is something that I've talked about before. Hopefully it's becoming more of a thing, because I think it drastically improves your stone setting. In, say, a 4-prong, you hold your stone better, you stay tighter a little bit longer, presumably. So I'm going to use a very small 0.3 millimeter ball burr. And I'm going to relief in the very center of the prong. Whoop. If I can hold on to it. Now, platinum being a different beast, making a cut like this, it's a little bit harder with that little bitty burr. So we're putting in a relief for the facet junctions at the bottom of the kite facets. Basically the end of the star facets. There's a line that goes down straight to the girdle. And then there's usually a pavilion facet that lines up directly with that, or facet junction that lines up directly with that. And this just lets you hug that little junction a little bit better. Make better contact on the stone. And it can prevent your stone from spinning in the mounting too, which is always a bonus. Oh no. Oh no. Well. That is a hitch in our giddy up. Okay, so I've got a little oxygen cylinder over here, and I've been kind of eyeing it, like, okay, it's probably time that it needs to be replaced. It was getting down there. Well, it's empty. So that's going to prevent any of our soldering tonight until I can get that addressed. But at least there's a place right down the street where I can do an exchange. But that'll be for tomorrow. So we'll do the setting on this. We won't do the runaround repair or the platinum solder, unfortunately. Just another thing. I usually use my oxygen. An oxygen cylinder, even a small one, lasts a very long time. But I usually use my oxygen when I'm spraying off debris, because it uses very little of it. But that came to bite me in the rear because I am now oxygen free. There we go. Well, it should have been one of the things I checked before I hit the start button on the stream. Alright. So we'll try to do some other things here. It may end up being a truncated stream tonight, just because we run out of things we can do. Because I had a few things planned. We got some pieces I want to get done for tomorrow, or before tomorrow. And now we will have to wait. Alright, let's get our stone back in place. And here's a good example. You can zoom in right here on this junction here. Alright, so I've relieved for the facet junction that goes right along this. Whoop, maybe you want to see that in the microscope. Alright. Alright, I'm going to point this facet junction out. Get a good focus here. And because this is a Euro cut, it's a little bit different, but you still have a kite facet, shaped like a kite facet here, and then these facets, and then this facet junction. I love to, oh, and there's a matching one on the back side. So I love to allow for a little more space on this, and for the prong to make contact on both sides instead of on this facet junction, and that'll prevent your stone from spinning out of place unless a prong gets pulled back, or two prongs get pulled back. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's clean up the mount, or the seat and the surrounding areas. Because this is platinum, we can't just polish a filed point there. What we can do, zoom out just here, we can burnish this first, and then it should polish relatively well without having to go through a bunch of steps. It's important for your burnisher to be polished. I like to use the back of a file like this because it's a commonly used tool that I'm always going to. I like these little barrette files that come to a fine point. Okay, so with platinum, you can smooth it down kind of like that. If you're joining us for the first time, I want to hear from you. Let me know if you have any questions about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we do it, anything like that. I am an open book as far as these processes. I don't see any reason to. Okay, let's talk philosophy of the jewelry industry for a second. There are a lot of old jewelers that they know a lot. They've been doing it for years. They've seen everything. They've fixed everything. They've set every stone. When it comes to teaching that to someone coming up, they're, probably rightfully sometimes concerned about their job, or young bucks coming up and taking their jobs. They don't want to teach anyone how to do this. So a lot of that knowledge ends up getting wasted unless they decide in their later years to accept an apprentice, which is rare, especially nowadays. So a lot of that knowledge goes wasted, which is a darn shame. But I am going to be an open book about all of this. I'll walk you through every process, nothing held back, no secrets left unsaid. And these are my favorite talks. Yes, exactly. Yep. I was fortunate to work in a place that there was a pretty free exchange of information. Mainly that was out of necessity because the volume of work that we ended up doing. We had many custom pieces every day that had to be finished, and it was customers with deadlines, customers with weddings coming up. So many custom pieces, a lot of them that we cast even the same day, that we were finishing and setting and getting out the door. So it came down to, well, you need to learn this. Well, I'm going to teach you how, so you can take it off my back. But there's not that kind of exchange of information everywhere. If you're the only jeweler at a place and you never take on an apprentice or go to teach anywhere, then that knowledge gets lost. And my philosophy about things, just generally, is that it's not just important for a person to know how to do something. It's important to pass it on. Not for that person you're passing it on's sake. I mean, that is, of course, part of it. But for humanity's sake. The only reason we know how to do things better is because we are collectors and archivers of information in our own brains. You collect that information, you archive it for yourself, and you store it for later. And when the time is right, you use it. But we're also, through the power of language, able to transmit that information, to distill it, to transmit it, and to show it to somebody else. So that nobody ever starts at square one on jewelry. You're not that that person thousands of years ago that sat down and said, "Hey, I like this shiny stone. I really like this shiny metal, and I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to make something to wear around." They probably got laughed at by all their friends, like, "Look at this fool wearing this shiny stone around on his neck with a little bead of, or a little wire of yellow metal. How foolish is that?" And then it caught on, and etc., 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 etc. Fast forward, fast, fast, fast. And now we're here making fancy pieces. But you weren't that person. You weren't starting at square one, putting stone to metal for the first time, or beating bones onto a string. We've taken knowledge, we've taken design, and we've enhanced it for our own purposes, but only because we were able to communicate that information to other people. And they, through archival of information of their own and our ability to synthesize information together, we'll take that information, potentially, and do something new with it. And that's how humanity has progressed. So it's important that we do these things for ourselves, learn how to do something and learn how to do it well, and learn how to do that for a purpose. In a lot of cases, that's profit or a wage, a living wage, but also so we can pass that on to the next person coming up and do it better. Iterative progress. Mike Turner says, I was also pretty fortunate in most of the stores I worked in. Most of the former co-workers were very happy to teach and share. Yes, a lot of times that's out of necessity, but you do run into people in the industry that are very guarded with their secrets on how they do things. And I think sometimes that's a benefit, and sometimes it's a shame, because I want everyone to take away something from what I'm doing here, learning something along the way, learning a new process, learning how not to do something. Man, I do a lot of that, learning how not to do it. But if I can deliver that information and someone else uses it, I've improved. I made my mark on the world, right? I've made an improvement to the future, far beyond me. I love the quote about civilization is built by men who plant trees that they know they'll never sit in the shade of. That is a phenomenal outlook on life. Or it's a good value to have, that we pass both knowledge, skill, and information down to each other for the betterment of humanity. That's technology. I would refer to this as a technology. The tools we use, the processes we use, it's something that develops over time and gets better with advancement and with discovery. I wouldn't call it a science, but we're definitely advancing something here. Now, someone is blowing my phone up. I'm going to have to check it real quick. That's a great quote. I'm going to have to punt on this one, and we're going to Google where said quote came from. And of course I've paraphrased it pretty badly, I'm sure. Society grows. Society grows great when old men plant trees, in whose shade they shall never sit. And that's how we've developed to the point we're at. Men doing things and delivering that knowledge, delivering that work and that labor. So it says just a Greek proverb. I'm not entirely sure where that came from. All right. let's get back to work here. Okay, so I've cleaned up those little areas. I'm gonna take a, where are you? I'm going to take an end brush and I'm going to polish inside the seats. Now, platinum, I'm not looking to get it really finely polished. I'm really more looking to knock down any little burrs and spots in the metal that I don't want to potentially adversely affect that stone. So I'm just lightly polishing using the edges of this this end brush. We're going to run it both forward and backward. %. Oftentimes you learn more from mistakes than successes, absolutely. And you know you've matured when you appreciate those failures just as much as successes. All right, like I said, not trying to get this perfectly polished. I'm just knocking some of those little burrs off. We are going to try to polish these little areas that were rough before. There's kind of a seam in there. I'm wondering if maybe that was inserted. No, maybe not. Yeah, I guess so. Kind of looks like there was a... this may have been assembled in a couple of pieces. Now we're going to polish the sides of the prongs just to make sure they're nice and shiny. Run that in reverse briefly. Okay. Since we're on the topic of philosophy and building of civilization. Let's talk about this. We as humans are an organism built of cells, built of many individual parts that come together to make us who we are, right? But I think humans are an organism themselves, built of many parts, working together, connecting and exchanging information. And growing. Why is growth important? Why do I find it abhorrent, and I think you should too, that there's any discussion whatsoever that there are too many people? That is, frankly, the most ridiculous argument I have ever heard. Well, I don't want to bring people into this world. You know, there are too many people already. You know, I could understand coming to that conclusion when you're sitting in traffic in Los Angeles and you've got 4 lanes to your right and 4 lanes to your left, and they're all filled with cars. And you look around and you say, there are too many people. Well, that might be an easy conclusion to come to, but what you're not taking into account is exceptional people, the geniuses, the world changers. They come about statistically, just like the rest of us. You know? That's why we use the IQ system, because we've got an average, and we have above average people, and we have exceptional people, and we can judge that. But those people that come along with 190 IQs, just always the smartest person in the room, no matter where they go. Those are a statistic. You know, we have to have lots of people to have lots of geniuses. And if we want more geniuses, more world changers, more people who will advance our human form, our humanity, well, we have to have more of those people. We want more of those people. The only way we're going to have more of those people is if we grow our population, if we grow our species. We want as many of those people as possible. So we need to grow. And when we grow to our limit, we find a new limit. We expand our horizons, and we continue on. When Europe got crowded in all the nice places, men and women set out for perilous journeys to reach new horizons, because they were required to. They wanted a better life. So they sought out and they expanded humanity. They had outgrown either population-wise or culture-wise, where they had to get away and they had to expand and they grow and grow and grow. And when we reach our limits again, we will expand again. This time, probably to the stars. And then all those challenges of making more people have been overcome in the past. I'm sure there were people in the say 1500s that looked around and said, man, there are just too many people. And we would look at that as a pitiful blip. As far as the size of their population. They probably said there are too many people, we just can't have any more people running around. That's not the right way to look at it. Not in my opinion. Because we want to grow our human organism. We want to expand outward. We want to become a multi-planet species and keep growing and growing until we meet another organism out there. Because they're out there. And I'm not just going all conspiracy theory, alien, wacko. Logically, there is a greater organism than us out there. And what we don't want that to be is to be one that can feed on us. As organisms feed on each other, right? Your tiniest creatures feed on even tinier things. even tinier creatures, and they feed on even tinier creatures than them. So we want to make sure that when we do encounter one of those organisms out there who is a greater size or culture or level of advancement, technologically, we want to make sure that we can overcome them. And we're not going to do that by remaining a one-planet species. We need to expand, we need to grow, we need to reach out into the stars. And we need to be the big fish in the sea. Because you don't want to be a small fish around when a big fish comes a-calling. We don't want humanity to be a small fish when we encounter whatever out there. And there may be no chance. We may be so small that we're not even noticed. We slip through the cracks. But I think one of these days humanity will find that out. We will find a greater organism, or an organism that equals ours, and we'll have to hash it out and see who eats who. I hope I'll be long gone by then. But if it does come around in my time, I just want us to be the best species we can be. Mike says I would turn into a podcast just for the philosophy talks. Well, thank you. I appreciate you appreciating my ramblings. If you want to look at it in a historical perspective, up until the point in time where we have discovered all the ends of the earth, we know every country, we know every people, we communicate between them. Other than those people on Sentinel Island, where they haven't had any other human contact in many years. We know where everyone is. We know how to talk to everyone. Communication can happen between our species, and I think that is a changing point in our species. But before that, you had, for example, on a country level. Well, okay, let's boil this down. I'm going to drop this in the cleaner real quick, and we'll come back to setting. All right, let's boil this down. When two families built a house next to each other, and 3 families, 4 families, whatever, built domiciles next to each other so that they could collectivize their labor or exchange their labor with each other, or their goods with each other, and they created a town. Well, they may have thought at that point in time that they were the only town of that size. If we were the cavemen getting together at the very first time, collectivizing and creating villages, well, we might think our village is pretty big. We've got 10 huts, man. We're the biggest on the block. I know of a place just down the way. They have only got 5 huts, right? So we're the big dogs. And if push came to shove, we would probably prevail if we were to go down the way and have it out with those people, that 5 hut village. Well, they probably didn't know that 30 hut village is just down the way, thinking the same thing about them. And once you find out, and once you communicate, and once you know your neighbors, you might say, okay, well, we've had it out all we want. 5 hut village, 10 hut village, 30 hut village. Hey, we can come together. We can form our own little union, and then all those other villages, man, they won't be able to handle us because we've got this. Well, that's forming an organism, in my opinion. That is collectivizing um, our being. It's not just the individual anymore. We're collecting together to our own benefit and to everybody's benefit. Everyone in those villages. Hey, man, that's a benefit to everyone. And we did the same thing, and we made our territories bigger, and there was always a big territory down the way that we just we were worried about. So we're gonna work with these other people over here, and we're gonna come together, and we're gonna form a bigger territory than them, and we'll prevail. Well, we've done that again and again and again, scaled it up, and now we're on a country level. Our countries conflict, and we've got big countries, we've got small countries, and we're talking and we're working together, and we're determining how we can function effectively, and eventually, and I know it's a scary prospect, but it is an eventuality that eventually we will start to think in terms of our world being a collectivization. You can call that a one world government. You can call that a globalist proposition, but the eventuality says that will come together when we face problems inside or outside that we can't resolve without interaction and coming together. When 15 hut or when 10 hut and 5 hut villages came together and said, "Hey, we need to work together, otherwise that 30 hut village is going to have it too easy." It's the same thing. We're doing that, and we're doing that in real time, all the time. The internet has made that. The internet and digital communication and just electronic communication in general have made that possible to start looking at things on a worldwide scale or a continent-wide scale. The European Union was a collectivization of the countries there, so that hold on just a second. Let me get that next piece out. A collectivization there so that they could compete with the United States, who had grown to be the big dog on the block, and we still arguably are. Well, I do not have much of anything we can work on at the moment. So, because we're limited in our in our ability to solder, today was going to be a very solder-heavy stream, and here we are without any oxygen. Okay, so what I'm going to take a look at next that we can accomplish real quick, I've got a fancy little ring here, and we're going to take a pearl and set it on that post. Just get an idea of what it looks like here. So we're going to drill this pearl. We're going to pick a good side, we're going to drill it, and we're going to set it on this post. So what I need to do to prepare this mounting is we need to get this glue out. We need to rebarb our post here, and then we'll drill that pearl using a twist drill so that we can set it back in there. And then first we'll refurbish this. The last thing we'll do is set that pearl in place. So what we'll need to do is get this cleaned up. It's 18 karat. It'll need to be rhodiumed again. Oh man, Oh, that's some fancy stuff. You're going to put a giant maker's mark on the outside of your ring. Oof. All right, so we'll put that in acetone. We'll shake some of that glue off. We'll see. Here, let me see if I can break some of it off. Mike says you should consider a weekend edition that's Q&A with others in the industry, plus these philosophy talks. I'd listen to it for sure. Hey, yeah, that's a good idea, and I've thought about that. So, if anybody out there is watching, and you might sit for an interview potentially, that's something I thought I might do a little bit on this stream. Is reach out to people who are in the industry, ask them questions, get their take on it, do some collaboration of knowledge here, and we can do it live, so that we can take questions just like other podcasts out there. So, yeah, Mike, I've considered that. Industry is a changing, and there are a lot of young people that might be interested in the job, but they don't know where to get the knowledge. Some of those old timers are a little guarded with their knowledge, like we talked about before. So this may be a good opportunity to gather some of that and to talk to other people. So if you are someone or know somebody that would be up for a Skype call or some kind of we could probably do it on Zoom or StreamYard. StreamYard would probably be the best if you've got the patience to set up the necessary equipment. I would like to do some Q&As and some interviews and some collaborative work. I saw some really cool pieces people were making on the Stone Setters Facebook group, and man, I'd love to talk to some of those people one of these days, even if it's just for a chat. Hear their philosophy. Mike Turner says, I would happily jump in if you're looking for volunteers. I thought about a jeweler's podcast for several years now, and to my knowledge, there aren't any out there. Yeah, I was thinking about this today. The industry's changing, the world's changing. The next time that something big happens, and we, I'll put it this way, nobody expected the way COVID was going to shake out, in that people would go online more, and rely on the internet more than broadcast television and things like that for information and entertainment. So I think that is something that's going to continue in the future, and I think that I want to position myself as being one of the first to do what I'm doing here, because I don't know anyone else that does this on a live basis. I see a lot of people doing short video clips where they'll do a ring in a few minutes of clips, or a series of images, but I want to do it live because we can talk, because we can exchange information. So yeah, we'll get together about that. We'll chat about it. Okay, so I'm going to stick this in the acetone. The other ring should be cleaned shortly. My steamer's up and running. So I'm going to take a brief break, step away for just a moment while we acetone this, and then we'll come back and finish our stone setting. So y'all bear with me. We will be right back. All right. Sorry about the long break. Had to step away for just a moment. So we are back. I'm going to steam off the vintage ring. We're going to take a good look at that real quick before we set the stone. That shouldn't be a long process, and then we'll shape the prongs. That should be pretty relatively easy. And then we will drill that pearl. So stay tuned. I'm going to steam off that vintage ring real quick. There we go. Okay. All I did was brighten up the metal around it. We're going to readdress all of the mill grain once we get that center stone in. I'll walk you through that too. Mill grain is it can be a challenging process. It doesn't have to be, but we do have tools that will make it easier on that. A lot of mill grain originally was just pushed by hand pushed in a little tool, kind of like a, well, here it is. It just has essentially a pin vise on the end. You put your mill grain tool in it, and then you work it by hand. I like that. It can be useful to do it that way sometimes, but I think the better way now is to use the Graver Max with the mill grain tool. Now that comes with its pitfalls. You have to be very careful with that, because it can run away with it real quick, or you can get jittering and jumping on the mill grain, making your mill grain inconsistent. So I'll show you how I approach it with this one using the Graver Max once we get the center stone in. So back to our microscope. Let's get back to work. Okay, just going to set our stone in place. Okay, so I'm going to use parallel pliers to squeeze these prongs in. That way I can bring them in evenly on both sides. Now, your first inclination may be to squeeze this way, but because these are squared prongs, I'd like to do it the other way. This will just keep it a little bit more clean. And it's kind of like working at, oh my gosh, vector tightening. Kind of like vector tightening. We're going to do it across these stones. Got to make sure our stone seats down all the way first. Have to pull that back just a hair, so drops in place. Well, we're just going to have to go with it. There we go. As this prong stands up, we should get it. Get it in. Let's make sure we're still level. Oh, baby. Not perfect because of the shape of that stone, but I have come a little too far on this prong here. We're going to pull it back just a hair. I've got these that are particularly dull versions of a flush cutter. I've dulled them. They don't come together all the way. I like these for pulling prongs back because I don't mar the back of the prong very much, and it's easier to readjust the tool marks. Gotta get this one back just a little bit so we can get that stone back level again. And because platinum is platinum, this metal moves very beautifully. Alright. Get that down back into that seat. And you have to go into your seat. You're being difficult. Okay. I am going to grab the back of this prong and pull it toward me. I'm going to brace. Let's see. In this case, I would prefer some handy-dandy setting pliers. I do not have them on hand at the moment, but I do have my little channel ignition pliers that I can use in a similar fashion. So it looks like we've shifted that stone a little bit. We're going to shift it back the other direction. Open these guys up a little more. There we go. There we go. All right. Got that stone to move gently. Now we're going to go back to our parallels. Bring it in. Just like that. There we go. Let's take a look at our stone. Ooh-wee. Gonna have to make some minor adjustments. So because of the way the stone is shaped, you have a low spot on the girdle on this side and a high spot on this side. The table isn't level with them. So we're going to try to split the difference here. Those pliers look familiar. Yes, they have come in handy over the years. on occasion when stone setting pliers aren't available. Alright. Gotta shift this back just a hair this way. Mike, you recognize those ignition pliers? My preference overall setting pliers has become just these parallels. Whoop. Just the parallels. I like the ones with the finest point. Oil them up. Make sure they work very well. Make sure they come to a very flat point, and then I polish or trim the sides so that they come together at the same spots. These I didn't have to. Sometimes they're a little misaligned. These I've used for 5 years now, and they really are just the best stone setting pliers because you're clamping like this instead of like this, right? So you can grab things you normally wouldn't be able to grab. So I really like these for just about any stone setting application. Okay. There are a few exceptions where I would use the fancy $50 stone setting pliers, but for the most part, the parallels, some good fine chain nose, and those ignition pliers get me where I need to go. Alright, one spot that I'm seeing that I'm going to have to address is here. No, never mind. That looks like it came down all the way. Okay, so from here, I'm going to take we're going to take some of this metal, and we're going to treat it kind of like a bezel set. We're just going to flatten that down using the Graver Max. It might help if I plug mine in. Bear with me here for a second. All right. Okay. Okay. How do I do this? Let's make sure we're back. All right, we're coming in live everywhere still. Thank you guys. Awesome. Okay. All right, so with our Graver Max, or a conveniently priced simulant, unfortunately, I don't have collets that fit this this tool, so I have to swap out one collet for everything. My conveniently priced simulant wasn't exactly the same to match what GRS makes. Okay. So I'm going to use a flat-ended chasing tool in my Graver Max. All right. Fire her up here. I'm going to have to run the compressor very briefly here. We'll sit here and twiddle our thumbs because I know it's hard to hear over that compressor. There we go. Almost done. Should almost be up to pressure. There we go. Okay. Firing up our Graver Smith here. Let's set our pressure settings right. Okay, so we're going to use this. We're going to chase some metal straight down just to ensure that we've made contact over the whole edge of the stone to retain as much of that metal as possible so that we can use it to make our little prongs. Platinum is nice for this because it reacts really well and responds really well to chasing. Chasing straight down on this, and then we'll chase a little bit of metal over the edges just to be sure. All I'm doing is shaping this so that we can use it appropriately. Okay. Stone's sitting even. Mike says, I had a really good pair of chain nose that I modified to my liking quite a bit with the last couple of stores I was in. I had moved more into the design and manufacturing side opposed to stones. Yep. Chain nose are really useful for a lot of applications in stone setting. Apologize for that. Okay. Now we can take the front edge of this, treat it kind of like a V prong a little bit. Just want to make sure we're down tight over the edge of that stone. So kind of like a quarter bezel all the way around is what we're doing. Platinum loves the laser. Platinum also loves the Graver Smith. Gotta make sure this ring doesn't spin around on me here. I really like this California Air Tools compressor. It's about as quiet as they make them, but, which is still kind of loud, but we could at least have a little bit of a conversation over the top of it if we had to, versus most compressors, which will completely drown everything out. All right. Pull that fully flush on top of the stone. We'll knock off any excess here in a second. Somewhere is my Rumble chat. There we go. Cool. All right. So now let's do a little pre-shaping with our with a little file. Just for the back sides of these prongs. And square them off. Oop. I'm slipping around everywhere. Let me get resituated here. Okay. Just making sure they are square with each other. Because this is a vintage ring, you've got some definite discrepancies between one side and the other side of the ring. That's okay. You know, it's got its charm. Just gonna trim the backs of those prongs to get them ready. Okay. So now, let's talk about shaping these into beads. What we're going to do is shoot for 3 beads here with a groove going down the back to make it appear that they are 3 separate prongs. We could do them as 3 separate prongs. We just have to make cuts on each one of those and then reshape them appropriately. But we don't want to cut all the way down to the base, so I think we're just going to leave these as single pieces. Get some of the excess metal out of the way. We won't need. Okay. All right. This prong's going to be a little tall. Let's take him down. Match with the rest of them. just going to smooth that out. So we are going to groove these. We'll split them with the graver, or mark them with the graver, then we'll split them with probably a 70-degree burr. And we'll go from there. So what we're going to do is mark the front of the prong. Go straight from that mark to the center. Each of the sides. That should equally divide that prong into 3 sections here. All we've done is marked it. So from our center mark to the center, just like that. Same thing. You mark the very center. And then go from that center point to the center of the prongs, whichever direction that may be. So we're just trying to evenly divide these along the center of that prong. As we will shape those into beads here pretty shortly. Center mark. Okay, that's going to give us some targets to aim for here. So we're taking that all the way to the back of the prong. I'm just going to make our mark nice and obvious on the back side of the prong too. I'm going to use that as a guideline to shape these. I think I may choose a different tactic here. Just get a quick glance. Let's see. I should have a pretty big feeding tool here. There's a good one. This one's going to be huge, but we'll take a quick look at it. Oh yeah, that's way too big. Okay. I need to find my set of beading tools. What I want to determine is if I can shape these potentially using the Greater Max. I've got to find the right tool for it, so bear with me here. Here we are. Got a big one here. Okay. Well, that's a good example of something I could use here to our advantage. So what I'm going to do is take my saw blade and split those areas that I cut down to the base. I'm going to split them pretty good, and then we're going to shape those with a beating tool of the right size. Hopefully not too big. And we'll continue our look down the side of the prong. Okay, so split those down pretty much where I want them. So what I'm going to do is use a fancy triangle beating tool, which I'm going to show you how to make. I'm going to shape the two outside prongs with that, and then I'm going to use a cut burr on the back side. Okay, so let's shape us a fancy triangle beating tool. First thing I need to do I'm going to start with a regular beating tool, just like this. It's been used, it's been worn, doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to take my diamond bond wheel. This is a yellow diamond bond wheel from GRS. I love this for shaping tools. Comes in really handy, and we make a lot of tools. So having the right tools to make your tools is important. I'm still in shock that some judges in Colorado thought they could affect the election the way they did. It's a weird, weird world. Okay, so here's how we shape that that beading tool. We've got our beading tool here. We're going to run our diamond wheel. We're going to start by flattening one side pretty evenly. This cuts through steel pretty darn fast. You'll see it leaves a nice flat surface here. Nice and smooth. We're going to take this all the way down. To about a little less than a third of the way into our cut. We're going to turn it, trying to make an equilateral triangle with our beading tool here. Let's get kind of hot. Okay. Third side. We're going to come back and make adjustments. Like I said, we're trying to make a little equilateral triangle. So if you had to trim one side a little bit more than others, make that work, that's okay. Alright. So I could take this all the way down until those points are really sharp. I don't really have to on this one. But if you're doing melee setting, that's really useful. Take it down to where those points are sharp, and you have a nice little triangle cut. And that lets you shape things a little bit more effectively. Alright. So that's going to be about what we need to make those rounded. So we're going to use the Graver Smith, Graver Max, Graver something. We're going to chuck that up. Here's how we're going to use it. We're going to take that flat edge, and I'm going to start shaping the inside of this. Round that over. Just like that. The excess there, we're going to take off. I'm going to file a little bit. I guess we could do that on all these just to prepare it, make it easier to grab with that, that beading tool. I'm going to take those little corners off, and then we can shape it more effectively. Okay, so now we can take the beading tool here, shape down on the front, and round it around the side here. Whoop. see, because of this platinum, that's shaping really well. Going to come at it in a couple different directions, just so we can keep that round. A lot of the time it's easiest to come back to front. And this is one of the reasons, as a stone setter, I love platinum. Alright, so those are starting to shape up into nice little beads. Now, because we know we're going to do this other one with a cut burr, we can go ahead and shape the front of it where a cut burr won't be able to reach. There we go. Same thing here, coming in from the back, working our way forward. And the triangle shape of this makes it really easy to get down in between those to shape the area between them. I'm really a big fan of using these triangular beading tools. So, because the jewelers who originally made these rings didn't have quite the sophisticated tools we have now, we have to operate in a different way, but sometimes that can present a challenge because it's hard to replicate their style using more modern tools. So, that's why I'm doing this kind of a roundabout way. There we go. I'm chasing all over the place in the microscope. Take the excess off of this one. Those prongs are a little tall. We're going to take them down first before I try to hit them with the Graver Max, because those beads aren't going to be very big. Or they're going to be way too big if we start there. We don't want them quite so big. Alright. Much better. Take away any of that excess metal with the graver pretty shortly. Kind of a weird way to do this, but it's going to work. Okay, so that's starting to shape up. Okay. Okay, just going to reshape the front edge of these beads. We're going to do those with the cut burr. Okay. Second here, we're going to zoom in on a couple of these. Cut away any excess metal we got going around. Just like that. Trim the back sides a little bit. It's kind of a nice shapely little prong. Shape that one just a little bit more. Whoops. Pliers meltdown over here. side of this graver and smooth the front of that prong a little bit. Just doing kind of a rough cleanup. We'll do a little bit finer detail cleanup here in a second after we shape those other prongs. Just making sure all our corners are cut off, and rounding out, and those are starting to look like nice little beads. Okay. Let's pick an appropriately sized cut burr and do the backs, and we can take a look. This would be a really useful spot for what they call a conical cut burr. For a little bit better at getting in tight without marring up the sides. Still a little big there. Let's go one more step down. Perfect. That one will do it. Okay. We'll do this one in the micromotor. One moment here. Wow, 10:35. Time is really flying. We probably won't get to that pearl today. Didn't anticipate not having any of our soldering projects today because of the lack of gas. But that's just how it goes. So we will come back at this on another day. Run this kind of slow. Rounding the back. Down into the front. I'm not worried about clipping the sides because we're going to shape those again. Doing is getting a nice round shape on that back bead. Now let's use a graver and clean up the areas between the other beads. Like this guy. Over between them, just gently. Cut off that little guy in the front, or we'll have too much of a little flash there. Just going to nick off the little bits that might have clung to that prong as we were working on it. Looking at the back side of these, we're just going to make sure we take that all the way down. Match the others. And a lot of our shaping is going to happen even though it's platinum. We're going to do a little bit of our shaping with the polish. That's okay. We just started our shape here. Okay, so these are starting to shape up nicely. Let's take a look from a distance here. See, we've got 3 nice beads on each prong. It appears to be 3 prongs here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little 70-degree burr and run it straight down the back to make it appear that those are split. So let's do that, and then we will polish it. I'll show you the finished product. Need a little bitty 70-degree burr. I'm going to have to go to my backstop here. A little 70-degree. Create kind of a uniform kerf on the back. Prongs to make them appear as they would have in the vintage style, separate. Now you might see them curved one direction or the other. Just going to go straight down. It'll still look like nice little prongs. Whoop, got away there. Okay. Let's take a file and dress some of the backs of the prongs just a hair. Alright, use an engraver. Let's take the excess metal away. And clean up some of those spots that we missed before. Knock off some of these corners, but a lot of that will get smoothed up with polish either way. Okay. Admittedly, kind of a rough job here. It being platinum, being kind of wonky with the vintage shape styling. But I think we came out okay. Yep, we're gonna get to our pearl another day. Let me check this setting real quick and see if our glue came off. Ow. Acetone in an open wound. That's painful. Alright. Our glue is still not coming off. We may have to soak this for a day. Oh, hey, look at there. Never mind. Came right off. So, this is a twisted post. We may put a barb in it. I haven't quite decided yet. Let's get the rest of this clean. We'll polish it up. We'll drill that pearl. We'll go ahead and put it in. We may go ahead, or we may do that. Let's do that on tomorrow's stream. We may do the cleanup and refurbish on that, and then we'll do the setting of the pearl. Okay. So on this guy, we're going to polish this real quick. On the backs of those prongs, we're going to go ahead and polish in the areas that we're going to retouch the mill grain, and then we'll take a quick look at those stones that we need to reset. I think we're going to have to use a little bit more aggressive polish than this to shape these. That's okay. We can do that. Oh yeah, that's going way better. This is the white mirrored polish. We're just going to use that to gently round all the shapes and back sides of each of these prongs. those are shaping up really well. I'm going to keep the vintage look. These end up shaping up really well. Turning out to be pretty happy with it. A couple of hiccups. We can take a lot of this out. Just a little bit more shaping. Okay. we go. We have our vintage prong look. And all of those appear to be split. Our stone, even though it's a little misshapen, set well in there. And we'll go back over this with our final polish. And a lot of that should turn out pretty well. Okay. Well, we are approaching 11 o'clock. I think we're probably going to wrap it up pretty shortly. We'll throw this in the cleaner. And then tomorrow, we'll come back and do the mill grain. Let's take a look and see if our other stones are going to work for this. We've got some replacements, but we need to make sure they're going to function. There we go. All right. I'm gonna take one of these stones and just test fit it here. It might work if I take that in pretty far. Unfortunately, it's kind of collapsed. It's approximately the right size for those stones. So let's push that bar out real quick. And we'll see how it looks. What I'm going to use for that is a broken burr that I've smoothed out. I'm going to use it like a punch. Go straight down in the middle. Of that setting. And kind of widen it out. Basically, open these flaps out. Oh ho! There is our culprit. That is why it collapsed. And that is likely something I won't be able to fix easily. Well, maybe. Just gonna open that up just a hair more. bet you I can get a stone in there of the right size. Not too much fuss. So we'll take a stab at that tomorrow. For now, here is our completed setting. And all I've got to do now is kind of uniform some of these larger beads down to the size of the smaller ones, and then we'll hit that with a better polish. And I'll also trim up the sides here so that they're square. There you go. That's one way of resetting a vintage style ring. Every one of these is going to be different, of course, because they're all handcrafted, hand carved. There you go. We used the original prongs, cut them down, make them a little shorter. And we made it work for our smaller stone. All right. Okay, it is 11:01. I think we're going to wrap it up there. If you're watching and you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the follow if you haven't, hit the subscribe if you haven't. It does me a big favor. Bumps me up on all the lists when my content gets fed out to anyone that might be interested in jewelry. So hit like, hit subscribe, do all the things. You know what to do. For now, we're going to wrap it up. This has been Drip Made Live. My name is Jeremy Jackson. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments if you have any questions and you're watching the video later on, and I'll answer them in a future stream. So, if you like any of the pieces, like that vintage piece that we're working on today, you can contact me at dml@jacksonfamilyjewels.com, and we can talk about pricing or purchase information. So we'll leave it there. One more time. Thank you for watching. My name is Jeremy Jackson, and this has been Drip Made Live.